Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. This is Football at 4.
All right, Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast with Geoff Mosher and Adam Kaplan. Of course, Mosher is here on a Monday. It is a Eagles loss that we will dive into right now. And Geoff Mosher is here thanks to our friends over at Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long. Wild West Tropicana Harrah's Resort Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. There's Geoff Mosher. If you're watching the video stream live, you can see him there. What's going on, Moshe?
Mike, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. It's good to see you, my friend. A winnable game yesterday. Would you concur?
Yeah, I mean, sure. Do you mean going into it or the way the game took form?
The way the game
was obviously winnable the way it took form.
Pretty much both, really. I mean, they were a one-point underdog at kickoff yesterday. But at the end of the day, should you be disappointed, if you're an Eagles fan, that you lost that game?
You know, I think the Chargers are a better team. I think they've got, obviously, the quarterback completes 84% of his passes, and that's a really good thing for them. You can be disappointed. But to me, they lost to a team that's better than them. I mean, I think the Chargers are better than the Raiders. The Eagles got killed by the Raiders. They were competitive against the Chargers. Nobody wants to hear about improvements, but the bottom line is they have improved since that Chargers blowout, but they're still going to lose to teams that are better than them because they're not a very good team.
All right, so that the fact that they were in that game, you're saying is encouraging. You're saying that has shown some growth then.
I mean, I can't be alone in that opinion, right? Certainly over the last 2 weeks, the offense has scored more points. Well,
you're being rational to an irrational audience.
Well, and then I feel like we're going to probably have some discussion about that today with the defense. But, you know, it's hard for me to have a different reaction than other people. Other people who thought that the Eagles were going to be really good are probably disappointed. I didn't think the Eagles were going to be that good, and I thought this was a game they were going to lose, and they lost, and they were competitive.
I would say that I don't think – here's like – when I look, like, back to week one, they lost to Atlanta. Or they beat Atlanta, and they beat Atlanta up. And the reaction was, well, Atlanta's the worst team in the league. They're horrible. Well, Atlanta's in the playoffs right now. So you have at least shown you're on par with that team. So I feel like I'm in the boat with all these other teams that are in the mix with me right now. And if I have a game that's a winnable game at home, I can't the next day say I lost that game because I was not prepared.
Yeah, I don't think yes, I agree with you. You can't lose a game at this stage of the season because you're ill-prepared for your opponent. I don't think the Eagles were ill-prepared. Could they have done some things differently? Perhaps. But we've kind of said that with every game.
Well, at what point, Geoff? At what point? Like Sirianni said yesterday, look, I've blasted Sirianni for his game plan being lousy. Well, guess what? I'll give him credit. He learned from Detroit. I'm not saying he has to run it 40 times. I think it's almost excessive that he's running that much now, but he's learned. He has learned and evolved his game plan, okay? Mm-hmm. At what point does the head coach step in and say, dude, 16 straight completions, do something different?
Well, 16 straight completions weren't all against the same look, to be fair. I killed Jonathan Gannon, just like Sirianni, like most of us, after the first 5 or 6 weeks for a couple of things. One, I thought he was playing too many linebackers and not the right linebackers. He's changed that. His linebacker play is getting a little bit better.
I agree.
Especially with TJ Edwards in there. I felt he was playing too much too deep coverage and allowing runs because he doesn't have great run-stopping defensive lineman or great linebacker, huge linebacker that can do that. So what's he doing now? He is playing more safety in the box. And as we got further in the season, it said, hey, you can blitz a little bit too. Well, yesterday he blitzed more than he's blitzed all season. So I'm loving the reaction that now he's not playing his corners up on wide receivers enough, or now he's not. Like every time this guy changes something, it works like in a smaller sense. Like the linebackers are playing better, the blitzing can be a little bit, but it's not. He's got a bad defense. I don't know any other way to dress this up and get people to realize that maybe he's not a great play caller, and that's fine. I can accept that. but what he's putting out, he's not doing the same thing every week. He's trying to make changes. It's not working.
So you're suggesting this isn't a coaching situation. This is a personnel situation?
No, I think what I'm suggesting is, and this is just a day of listening to people talk about it, is that everybody thinks that this guy is completely terrible at his job and doesn't know what he's doing. And everybody keeps saying he needs to switch things up. He has switched things up. It's not working. What does that tell you? Nick Sirianni switched things up, right? And all of a sudden you saw better results. So either Jonathan Gannon is not making the right switches, which is hard to believe because there's only certain many things you can do, right? Or he's got a bad defense. Or you have C, which is you have a bad defensive coordinator and a bad defense.
Well, I mean, look, I would think that you would agree with me that Slay and Nelson are better than any set of corners they've had here.
And I think you would agree with me that wide receivers are not hurt the Eagles this year. I mean, Mike Williams made an amazing catch. How many 30 to 40 yard catches?
Part of the reason why the receivers aren't hurting them is because, I mean, they're just letting them catch the ball in front.
Right, because that coverage is designed to keep everything in front.
Right, well,
and
that's the point that I'm making, Mosh, is, and look, I understand what you're saying, but his philosophy essentially is, hey, we're going to let you go on these long drives because at some point you're going to make a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, okay.
And they're not, right?
They're not making mistakes. So at that point, you have to decide, do I want to keep going with this theory that they're going to make a mistake, or am I going to have to try to force them into a mistake?
Mike, before yesterday, how many times did you see Steven Nelson and Avonte Maddox blitz the quarterback? Probably no, maybe once. I can't remember.
Oh, yeah, I would say no. And Nelson blitzed the quarterback yesterday and got called for hitting the quarterback.
Do you remember we used to talk about Jim Schwartz and like you got to blitz more, and then he would blitz and they would just get killed? Like,
well, look, I'm not saying they need to blitz more. That's not me saying they need to blitz. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just asking, can they do something? Can they change their coverage? Can they put more on the plate of Slay and Nelson? Can they say, guys, we're going to depend on you more, so we're going to ask you to kind of press a little bit more. We're going to play you more man because we can't just keep sitting in this zone because we don't have enough talent in these other areas. You're the two guys I trust the most, and if we get beat once over the top, that's on me.
Yeah, he could. And I would say, and again, this is where we get into a territory of I don't know if it's all him, all D, or both, but I would say if he's already made 3 changes and none of them work, what makes us think that this other tiny wrinkle, play your corners up a little bit more? Okay, Steven Nelson up on Mike Williams a little bit more. Now you're asking for those double moves. You will get beat over the top. And by the way, I've thought about this a lot. You're right that you still may force a more lower percentage pass, and you may force more incompletions. But if you're giving up the faster, explosive play, right? Let's say Justin Herbert completes only 65% of his passes, but he hits 4 big ones and they score touchdowns or set up easy touchdowns. Then you've done A, no difference, and B, you've given the ball back to your offense. Like you're now kind of in the same boat. You've given up the same amount of points, and now you put the pressure on your offense to maybe have to overcome a deficit because you've allowed them to hit you over the top a little bit more. Maybe it works, Mike. I don't know. But the point is he has not been stagnant for the last 3 weeks. You've tried to do things, and they're not working. And by the way, I heard you earlier, Davion Taylor looks like a linebacker who can make a tackle when the guy's right in front of him. He's still lost in coverage. I mean, go look at how many tight end yards were. I mean, he's an okay. You were trying to compare like Schwartz's defense to this year's defense and say this defense is a lot better.
Well, I'm saying
corner, but not really in totality.
No, Taylor, you're right. He is raw and lost half the time out there. But I'm saying he's at least an athlete that can cover up for some of his mistakes that he makes because he can run. These guys they've had out there in the past, you give up a catch, they're out of place, and then they can't even make up for it because they couldn't run either.
Like a Nate Gary, perhaps.
Yeah, and then you got Gary out there who you catch the ball, he couldn't tackle, and he couldn't catch you. You know, Taylor's going to give you the catch because he can't cover, but at least he's fast enough to make up for the fact that he just lets you catch the ball right in front of him, you know?
Yeah, no. But I look at this defense, and people look at this defense and think Jonathan Gannon's an idiot. I look at this defense and I say, this is what you get.
And I'm not suggesting that he's not ready. Oh, no, but I'm certainly being critical of him, yes. But I'm not suggesting that he needs to be fired or that he's an idiot and he doesn't know what he's doing. I would suggest he doesn't have the personnel that he wants.
Absolutely. I think, I look at this defense and I see what is it, 20 years 10 years of not drafting safeties in the first 2 rounds. I see 20 years or whatever since you developed your own Pro Bowl corner and didn't have to go out and get an aging one. And then safety, same thing with Jaquan Jarrett, Nate Allen, were 2009, 2010. And honestly, Jaquan Jarrett stunk and Nate Allen was serviceable. He wasn't even that good. So Michael Lewis was the last Pro Bowl safety they drafted. That was 2003 or 2, right?
Let me ask
so
you then, Moshe.
It's 18 years, man.
Are there I'm saying, is his game plan suggesting that my safeties are a problem?
I think his game plans is very soft and very unaggressive. And that's the part I don't like. And I get it, but I also can't sit here and tell you if he played a little bit more aggressive, a little more up on these guys, that 30-year-old Rodney McLeod and 30-year-old Anthony Harris are going to sit there and do a really good job defending Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. And I mean, they could barely stick with these tight ends that you never even heard of, right? I mean, the reality is it's like a pick your poison to me. And he has tried to do things differently. It's not working. And I think we always wait until the offseason to kill the roster and the decision makers, but they play as much part in this as the coaches do.
Right. Now, I mean, again, I said, I'm not the guy. Fans, they just want to blitz. I mean, Jim Johnson has crushed every other defensive coordinator's ability to be a coordinator in this town. They just want blitz, 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 blitz. They did blitz more yesterday. The blitzes didn't work. Now, they did work in the first half. They blitzed a lot in the first half, and they caused some havoc. Why didn't they do that in the second half?
You need me to tell you why? Did you lose a certain piece of personnel in the second half that might be your only good guy? That you just said it. Darius Slay put more on his shoulders. Well, when he's out on the sideline and you got Zach McPherson on, I was shocked. There was one play. I'm like, wow, they haven't tested Zach McPherson yet, right? And then I noticed he's playing about 10 to 12 yards off of it was not Allen. It was maybe Parham or no, Guyton. And if you remember, Herbert just immediately fires the ball to Guyton, and for whatever reason, that was one of his 6 incomplete. He just fired it wide, and I was like, I'll be damned. He misses the only opportunity he's going to take against McPherson. But that just shows you, like, they had no confidence. You got Andre Chachere out there. Chachere, yeah. You got Zach McPherson. You got TJ Edwards, who's really been a help in the run defense. But if you're asking him to play man, if you're going to play blitz and play more man, and now he's got to cover Austin Eckler one-on-one and cut. You're just asking for a bad matchup somewhere. It sucks, but that's the reality of being a bad team.
All right. Well, that at least paints a better picture to the people out there that would say, all right, why don't you doing this? So if they blitz more, that's not helping them if you don't have Slay on the field, because they're going to find that guy and go right after him and say, McPherson, you make the play, because that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe there's some merit to the idea, just let them make – if they get beat, they get beat. But people say, like, I'd rather see that, but they're wrong, because then when the Eagles lose, no matter what, they get mad at it. It doesn't matter how they lose. They get mad for something else. And by the way, this Nick Sirianni, I give him a lot of credit. The offense the last 2 weeks, he's found something with the run game. How long do you think that's going to last, that he can run the ball? I heard you say it. You're right. How long do you think he's going to be able to run the ball 35 times a game? You think the Broncos are going to sit there and let him run 35 times a game in Denver? Heck no. So this whole idea that all these games now are winnable because the offense is bang, bang now? No. Someone's going to make the adjustment. And they're going to make the Eagles in a game or two, and then when they're not playing the worst run defense in the L or the worst team in the NFL, someone's going to challenge that offense a little bit more and see if they can do more than just run it up the gut. And then when it doesn't work, you're going to hear that Nick Sirianni's an idiot again.
Well, right. And you're right. And I said this earlier. You can't run 40 times a game and expect to win games. You might shorten the margin of error and make the games closer, for now. But that's not a sustainable blueprint. That's like the Broncos suggesting we're going to keep Tim Tebow and keep this playbook for him. And they couldn't do it. It was sustainable for 8 games, but you can't do that. So
absolutely.
What do you think though of the running game here? Because I think it's going to be interesting. With Sanders ready to return soon, you got Jordan Howard decision to make. Howard's been pretty good. You got 4 running backs if Sanders comes back. How do you divide the time? He already talked today. We just heard him say got a lot of mouths to feed. You can't find a way to get Watkins involved right now because you're running so much. Rieger's apparently is completely out of the offense. I mean, it's a tough when he gets Sanders back, this is going to be real interesting.
It is. I think obviously the running game's been very effective and good. Again, against the worst team in the league and then the worst run defense in the league. But I also think the running game is kind of boring. Not like conceptual. I don't mean like it's not fun to watch. I mean, it is actually fun to watch them just dominate in the trenches. But they don't do anything Shanahan-esque or ultra sophisticated. They put 2, sometimes 3 tight ends on the line of scrimmage with the 5 offensive linemen, and they run the ball up the middle, right? Or sometimes they come out in shotgun and they run a draw. They run the ball up the middle. You don't see a whole lot of motion. You don't see a whole lot of misdirection. You don't see a whole lot of trapping. You don't see a ton of pin pull stuff, right? So that's why I say don't get so comfortable with the idea that the Eagles are just going to roll all over everybody with a running game here on out. Vic Fangio is one of the best defensive coordinators in the game. He's watching this tape and he's seeing the Eagles just basically line up and run the ball because their personnel is better. His personnel on defense is pretty good. You saw what they just did at Dallas. That might be a little bit of an overestimation of what they really are. But someone's going to challenge this offensive running game and makes Nick Sirianni be a little bit better, and we'll see if he can be better or more creative.
Yeah, and then obviously, Hurts, he missed a couple throws yesterday. I don't know if he's getting judged on that. Sirianni said, hey, he made plays that no one else is making. He only was asked to throw 17 times. Is the message, hey, we got to run to win, or is the message we don't have enough trust in our quarterback to keep asking him to do more? What's the fine line there?
Yeah, well, it's both. And it's interesting. I was very curious to see how the Eagles would come out in this game after what they did against the Lions. They come out right. In the first play they run was the under center look, right? There was under center, downhill, bam, Boston Scott got like 3 yards. The next 6 plays were all from the shotgun, which told me that Nick was trying to play it halfway, trying to get that run going, but he was also trying to go back to shotgun. He didn't want to be predictable. He didn't want to have to just do what he did against the Lions. He's trying to help the quarterback mature and grow and groom. But once it didn't work, he's like, forget. I think he even said, I think Evan Washburn said at halftime, Nick Sirianni said, hey, we're just going to do what we're going to do to win now. And that was just lining it up, 3 tight ends, power run, bam. And it helped. I mean, it did help Jalen Hurts be able to establish more of a flow in the second half there. But like you're saying, you just can't do that in the NFL anymore. You can't play this way and expect to beat good teams all the time that way.
And the Chargers, I guess, would be the best, other than Dallas coming up. That Charger team's probably the best team you had left on your schedule. So if you play the way you did yesterday, is that sustainable to win? I don't know. You got Denver, New Orleans, the Giants, the Jets, Washington, Giants, Washington, Dallas. You have 8 games left. If you play the way you did yesterday, I don't know, can you win half of those games?
Half? Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, maybe. Absolutely. I imagine that, if you were a New York City sports talk guy and I was working for the New York Daily News or Post, you would say, hey, the Giants just beat the Raiders yesterday. Pretty good there.
Yep.
Then you look at the schedule and you see who they got. No, the Eagles. They should be able to beat the Eagles, right?
Twice.
I mean, they just beat the Raiders, killed the Eagles.
Yeah.
So the Giants should be able to beat them twice. So the argument that we make here about making the playoffs or winning the winnable games is the same argument that's going on in Atlanta, in New York, in San Francisco.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree with that. And that's why I say, well, you're in the playoff mix. Playoffs? You know how many Jim Mora memes I get sent to me? And I'm like, look, this isn't me saying I think that you're a Super Bowl contending team, but Moshe, the mentality of people don't even want to make the playoffs. They'd rather get this draft pick, this mythical draft pick, and then they'll complain that the guy making the pick they don't want. So there's no winning here. You know what I mean? It's like, here's the thing I would suggest too. They need a linebacker. They need a safety. You're not drafting a linebacker or a safety in the top 5. So what are you going to do with these mythical 3 picks inside the top 10, right?
Yeah. Well, I think yesterday showed you they could really use an elite pass rusher too, though. I mean,
right,
when
you're hoping Miami gets you that pick.
Yeah, that's a good point. When you are going to play he is going to play cover 2. I mean, he's not going to just completely abandon that and never play it anymore. And when you do that and you're not going to blitz, you do need your front 4 to rush the passer well. They did it against the Lions fairly well. But again, you're playing a better team. A quarterback who's got a little bit of a better idea what he wants to do with the ball.
Yep.
And that didn't help them. But I also thought the D-line didn't really come to play. So that was not good.
Yeah, I mean, the defensive line, you lose Graham, and that has been a factor. Obviously, they're hoping for more, but that's a situation where 1 week you get 6 sacks and 12 quarterback hits. This week you get no sacks and 1 quarterback hit. That you can't have that big of a discrepancy, a drop-off. You need more consistency up front if this is the way you're going to build your game plan.
You do. You absolutely need to hit a lot on your acquisitions this offseason. And you can't use one game at, oh, man, this show we really need a defensive. No, you need to look at this thing in totality. They need defensive personnel pretty much at every level.
Yeah, I mean, Barnett offsides, that play kills you again. I mean, you don't know what happens there. 3rd and 6, he goes offsides. 3rd and 1, they don't get the yard. They go for it on 4th, and there's your game right there. I mean, one play doesn't make it, but that's just a microcosm of what that guy has been this year.
Yeah, it's fun. I was thinking the other day how Ben Simmons and to some extent Carson Wentz have made it possible for a guy like Derek Barnett not to be the most hated athlete in the city when he probably would be if you didn't have those other 2 huge situations hovering over because Derek Barnett's consistent penalties at the worst times, and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, of course, not even being active and injured, just not being the second-round pick that he was supposed to be. Ordinarily, and most times would be like the number. It would be like, remember how when Nelson Aguilar after his first year, how he was probably the athlete that most brought out people's anger in the city. I think those 2 guys are catching a break right now.
Interestingly enough, Philadelphia 3-6. They'll play Denver next week. Denver, who absolutely blew the doors off Dallas yesterday. I don't know. Did they show a weakness in Dallas? Was there a blueprint there for Dallas?
Did you watch any of the game?
I watched a lot, almost all of it.
Okay. I only watched it in snippets. I didn't sit down and watch the whole game, but I saw the early 4th downs that they went for it on, where they passed. I thought Dak looked like he was up on his toes a lot with the ball in his hand. Like his calf might have still been an issue. He just did not, to me, look spry enough to make the plays that he normally would make, and I think that was a big factor situationally for them.
Yeah, that and I would say, and look, I still think Dallas is very good. They're not in danger of losing this division, but just bigger picture, I think people can realize that they might be able to run the ball. I think a lot of these teams are always behind on them, don't try to run, but if you go toe-to-toe with them from the get-go, I don't think they stop the run. I think Van Der Esch is not the same player that he was. And Diggs, he has all those interceptions, but I think he takes a lot of chances because of those interceptions. I think he's also
allowed the most air yards in the league as well.
He gives up 18.5 yards per catch. And I think teams are starting to challenge him a little bit more because he takes a lot of chances, and he's starting to get beat a little bit more.
Yeah, he feels like a poor man's Asante Samuel.
Asante Samuel, right? I was saying the same thing. My God, I said this to my buddy the other day. I was like, this guy's like Asante Samuel, just jumping on everything, doesn't tackle a lick. And as good as Parsons is, he's amazing. Sometimes he's so over-aggressive.
Yeah, Ernie Sims had that issue, right? I mean, I'm not trying to compare Ernie Sims because he was clearly not as good as Michael Parsons is going to be. But Ernie Sims was so fast and so athletic, and so much so that people would be like, I'm just going to throw a screen to his side because he's going to literally over-pursue the target by like 10 yards, right?
Geoff Mosher, the Inside the Birds podcast dropped this morning with reaction to the Eagles' loss to the Chargers and what could be next for them. They take on Denver. We'll have coverage of that when Geoff returns on Wednesday's edition of Football at 4. All right, Geoff Mosher.
All right, buddy, this was fun. Talk to you Wednesday.
As always, Andrew's here tomorrow. Mosher's back on Wednesday. And of course, Adam will be here on Friday's show. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. Football at 4 is brought to you by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long. Wild Wild West, Tropicana, Harrah's Resort, Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com.